shit. Oh shit. Whoopsie doos. Misclick. Hello, Catamaran. Welcome. Welcome back to another Therapy Thursday. That music is awfully loud. There we go. Welcome back to Therapy Thursday. It's been a whole week since you guys seen me on here. I've been busy. For those of you who are passing through and don't know what Therapy Thursday is where I get together with my sister Asteria, who is a licensed therapist here in the state of California. And we basically encourage people to come in and if they have anything that's bothering them or is going on in their lives that they would like to, find out, like, why am I feeling this way, or why is my brain acting like that, or all that good stuff, and you don't really have access to a real therapist because of finances or whatever. Man, hold on, this freaking hood on this hoodie is bugging me. So if you don't have access to any of that stuff, for whatever reason, then this is essentially a discount version of therapy for those who just have simple questions, or just stuff that can kind of be handled within, like, an hour or two. Depends on how many people get in here. If there's only a few people asking questions, we can kind of go more in depth with individuals' questions. But there's a lot of people, we kind of want to jump around and get to everybody with some simple stuff. So if you got any questions or have any concerns or whatever, go ahead and drop it into chat. It's going to be on that side, I think, for you guys. I'm trying to mirror myself. Anyway, drop it in chat, and then, yeah, we can answer that. So, that being said, let's bring her in. Let's see, what weird thing can I do today to bring her in? Oh, I'm going to give her the name of this character I made on Path of Exile. Dorf Frumpgunt.
What?
You heard me.
You're right, I did hear you. Loud and clear.
Good old Dorf Frumpgunt.
Oh, you said it.
That is the name of a character that I made in that game, Path of Exile.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, what's going to be a good name? Dorf? Okay. What about his last name? Frumpgunt. Okay, perfect.
It's like, yes. This is it right here.
Mr. Dorf.
Mr. Dorfman.
Yeah.
Or Dorfman.
It sounds offensive in so many ways, but there's actually nothing there.
Exactly. It's like, it's empty and yet everything.
Yes, it's empty, yet it makes people twinge.
Like, what did you call me?
Like, you Dorfy Frumpgunt. It's like, those aren't even words.
It's like, I know.
That's the whole point of it. How do you feel? I feel angry. Like, you should come to Therapy Thursday.
Speaking of, hello, chat. Happy Thursday. Welcome back for anyone that's coming in. Hi to YouTube, although you're already doing not the best, because you should be here when we're live. So do better, okay?
Who?
And YouTube.
Oh, YouTube. Yeah, YouTube. Get it together.
Do better.
Do better. Attacking the people that can't defend themselves. That's all right. I don't think anybody watches this on YouTube anyway, at least not yet. There's going to be one person that comes through and goes, you know what? I like these people. There's going to be like sharing it everywhere, and then that's how I'm going to lose my job.
Oh, Get out of here.
It's going to get me canceled in like 45 years. All right, we're taking you off Medicare, bud. It's like, oh.
It's like, darn it. But can you like not?
So you said this stuff on YouTube. I'm like, they haven't been a business in 26 years.
It's like, what do you mean? Anyway, so at this time I'm gonna do my little spiel, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Hi. My name is Asteria. I am a marriage and family therapist. I work under the within the boundaries of the state of California. That's really important because as a marriage and family therapist, it's important to know, or just anyone in the mental health field, just like there's certain like laws and ethics that are bound to the type of kind of background that you have, specifically your credentials, and in relation to what state you are in. So it's really important because if you ever hear me talk about laws and ethics in here, it is to the bounds of California. All states have different setups. So I just want to make that very clear in case everyone has any questions. So like, is this something like about confidentiality or anything like that? I can only speak on behalf of California. As a marriage and family therapist, I have the ability to work with individuals, couples, and relationship dynamics in addition to families. My background, into which I've kind of like put a lot more of my attention and awareness is based in trauma, substance use diagnoses, personality disorders, depression, anxiety, and grief and loss, and modalities surrounding those kinds of symptoms and diagnoses. We like to use trauma or therapy Thursday to hold this as a space to give back to folks who are in need of support. I'm very aware that resources are very hard to come by. Therapy is expensive. I know that. And I know that right now, especially of all times, that finding support is really difficult. And so we like to use this space to kind of answer general mental health questions. I even have kind of a plan, if we can get to it at some point, to talk about a specific mental health modality that I'd like to bring up in here that we haven't discussed before, that I think is something that's very applicable in a very general way. And I encourage you to bring your questions, comments, concerns into the chat. We'll hold the space to we'll just be chatting about various things related to what's going on, mental health and so forth. And however, we'll just kind of hold space and kind of jump into questions as they show up. I do have some boundaries to which things that are not okay here, and no, you will not change my mind. So use your energy for something better. One, I don't do diagnosing here. I will talk about diagnoses, but I do not do diagnosing here. So if you think that your mom is narcissistic,
she probably is. Yay! Thanks, Bob. I've been a fan of the show for years.
I want a Subaru. Anyway, so she probably is. Let's just assume, just for the sake of everything, that she probably is. However, I cannot do any actual and official diagnosing on here. So do not tell your therapist, oh, I have this diagnosis because somebody on the internet gave it to me. Yeah, that'll run real well with your therapist.
Yeah, tell your doctor that WebMD sent you here too. So
yeah,
it doesn't go over very
go
well.
ahead. The other boundary that I have is because I am a mandated reporter. I make it very, very, very clear that I am a mandated reporter to factors related directly to my clients. So when I am off the clock, I am off the clock. If it is happening to other folks and so forth, that does not register to me to be forced to report. However, it does put me in a pickle because then it's ethically kind of it puts me in a bind. So because of this, and because there are folks that fall into protected classes for me, suicidality is welcome to be talked about here because I believe that it should be less of a taboo. However, I will not be discussing or giving any support or anything like that related to suicidality for anyone that is under the age of 18 years old. So don't start, don't try. I think that's pretty much it. So if you have questions, comments, concerns, throw them up in the chat. Otherwise, Kilton and I are just gonna kind of get started, and we'll see where the conversation takes us tonight.
Yay!
That being said, how are you?
Oh boy, it's been a week.
Talk about it.
I'm really tired.
Makes sense.
I was actually so tired this morning. I woke up, went to the gym. I got home from the gym to change to go to work, and I was like, you know what? This is not going to happen today. So I just crawled back into bed for 45 minutes.
Nice.
I was like, okay, and I woke up, I got up again. I was like, that's better. Now
Let's try again.
yeah, I was like, let's do
And
this again.
how?
Yeah, it's been pretty rough, and I've actually been having a bit of a situation today. Not really along the lines of mental health, but more along the lines of gut health. I've been. You ever play the game Fallout and wonder? I wonder what this smells like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my ass right now. It's the
no.
wasteland.
Oh, I hate that for you.
You ever have those ones that you like blast out and you're like, you know what? The next time I fart, I should probably pull down my pants so it doesn't ruin my underwear. Is that just me? Okay.
Are you okay?
It's bad.
It sounds like it's bad.
I just got out of the shower and I was like, I put on my clothes and I was like, man, I gotta fart. But I know how bad these have been, so like to fart, I just like pulled my pants down because I don't want, like, I have to wear these underwear to bed, and I'm not worried about crapping them. I just don't want them to smell so bad.
I think you need to see a doctor. Please see a doctor.
Oh, like, that's funny.
But here's the thing about me, I'd like to emphasize. I could apply gut health into mental health.
Well, our gut essentially runs our system.
Yeah, well, it's like, even in that, it's like many things such as like heartburn, gastrointestinal issues, freaking migraines, headaches. That is all like direct pieces that could be contributed to like mental health, even like when we have stuff like colds and fevers. So
yeah, this one's not related to that. I can tell you that right now. I can tell you exactly what it's related to. It's called I don't know the brand name. It's fucking tortilla chips. I was being like, I crushed a bag of tortilla chips.
Oh my fucking
over the last, it took me a couple days, but it's my body's not used to just.
You were consistent.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sad. Well, how are you feeling today?
My stomach hurts, but super stressed. We got finals next week. Yeah, so unfortunately, even though I only have 2 classes, I have 3 exams, which is fucking fun.
That's pretty dumb.
Yeah, kind of shitty, and I'm really, really nervous about it, so yeah, especially because this last round of homework I was doing for math was just, I'm like, this is confusing. This is a lot of work. It's taking me 30 minutes to do one problem, and our first exam for math next week is going to be on this chapter, and I was like, cool. And we have how many questions? 10. How long do we have to do it? An hour. All right, that's not much time.
Love that.
Yeah.
No, that's not much time.
Yeah, we're going back down to that like fucking 5 minutes per problem scenario again.
Oh no, not again. Ugh. It's like I was just getting you know how like there's certain like social media platforms that have like memories of like, hey, this is what you posted, this is something that I came, like whatever, like this happened like this many years ago or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
I was getting memories shown to me about when I graduated from undergrad. So I graduated with an undergrad 6 years ago. And I was like, and it showed me like walking around, like, because I used to live across the street from my old undergrad, as you recall. And when I was like having this very like reflective moment, and I was like, oh wow, that's very like whatever of me. And then hold on, I do not condone this behavior. Do not say it's because you picked this up from the stream. We will deny it.
I didn't hear anything. Wait, how do we deny it if it's being recorded?
Yeah, I said what I said. I reject condoning or endorsing this behavior. There, that's it. In the next freaking a video. It shows me setting my notebook on fire. And I was like, I hate your school.
The video was made by AI. You can't trust anything these days.
It's wild out here in these streets. And I was just like, yeah, it was my victory lap in itself, because I was in school for an additional semester for undergrad because I changed my major. I think like halfway, or like, well, I don't know exactly when, but it was like at a point where I was like, yeah, bio pre-med's not my approach. But because when I did, I had to like wait for things like at certain, like in the spring quarter, because I was in the quarterly system and everything like that. And I was like, yeah. So because of that, I had needed an additional an additional quarter, and yeah, and so I do not miss school. And I continuously hear about it from like folks like you who are in school, and I'm like, oh, I don't miss that. I do not miss that one bit.
Yeah, it's pretty not great.
On another note, a moment of victory I'd like to say is that Artemis just had his final yesterday, and ultimately he's done with his bachelor's.
Yay!
He did it. He did it.
How do we know he did it? Or is he sure he passed his last class?
He could have absolutely bombed that thing and passed.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
I kind of have that with my physics exam coming up. We're talking about like how much the percentage is or whatever, and I think the professor's like, "Oh, you know this. I mean, I don't know yet how many points I'm going to make it." I'm like, "That's supposed to be on the syllabus." But he's like, "Yeah, I don't know. We'll see." And he's like, "At most, it will be like 25% of your grade for the whole class." I was like, "Oh, good. I could just not show up and still get a C." You know.
Nice. Did you do that?
No, I mean it's this coming week.
Oh.
So not this week, but just next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Are you looking forward to being done with the semester?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Because, like, the school side of me just like, it's like, fuck, I finally don't have to do homework. I don't have to, like, you know, stress myself out. But then I know I'm going right back into the fucking isolation state, which isn't going to be fun.
Well, I mean, you could, sorry, how do you spell trepidatious?
Trep, T-R-E-P.
T-R-E-P, yes.
Is it A or I?
I don't know. Let me try I, maybe. That's it.
Then D-A.
I think it was I. Oh, wait, no. Let me see.
T-I-O-S? O-U-S. I don't fucking know. I've never heard of that word.
There it is. Trepidatious.
Oh, by the way, I heard an acronym on how to remember how to spell the word diarrhea. It was on Your Mom's House podcast. It's dude, I actually really, really have explosive anus. There you go, chat. You're welcome. Dude, I actually really, really have explosive anus.
Dude,
diarrhea.
I really have.
No, I actually
have really, really explosive anus.
No. Dude, I actually really, really have explosive anus.
Today has been a learning experience.
It is. D-I-A-H... Wait, dude, I actually... No, D-I-A-R-R-H-E-A. Diarrhea. And I have contributed to this podcast stream. Whatever.
Okay, so to go back in trepidatious is the definition is
sounds like
apprehensive.
A car.
It's apprehensive or nervous.
Okay, so I'm trepidatious about next week.
Oh.
Trepidatious.
I am experiencing trepidatious feelings related to next week. Yeah, that sounds pretty yeah, I see that point. Well, I mean, I do emphasize if you want to, you're more than welcome to engage in holiday festivities with me because after this week, I'm getting into the heart of it because I will give the shout out to our eldest in that he, between the last couple years, has gotten me really fucking stoked about the holidays.
Yay.
And so with it getting kind of like close. First of all, I don't know how you feel about this. This month has been going like fucking snail pace to me, like snail pace.
Yeah, seems like it.
Like it's like when folks are like, "Oh, today is the 7th." I'm like, "You're lying to me. You're absolutely lying to me." And I feel like it's like both fast and slow at the same time because it's like right now, like tomorrow is Friday and in tomorrow being Friday, I'm just like, oh, like I just go and I do my silly little job and it's the weekend and yay. And that's pretty much it. But once this weekend starts, like for instance, this Saturday, I'm gonna be going to our elder sibling's house.
Hello, Michaela. Welcome.
I'm gonna be wrapping stuff and going there and listening and like having hot cocoa and having silly little and like putting the stockings together and I'm really fucking excited. So you are more than welcome to come join.
This weekend, no can do.
Okay, well,
extreme study.
Okay, well, after the extreme studying finals, you're still welcome, so you don't have to have the big old saying. Because I know you're right. You do get really like you need connection with folks. So I encourage connection with folks. Yeah. On another note, no, I'll say that one offline, but I do want to, like, unless there's something else that you particularly wanted to chat about, I did want to bring up a modality or a therapy modality today that I think would be very helpful for the people listening to pick up some skills, especially to get through not only just like mental like blocks and hardships and emotional like barriers and discomfort, but also just something to get through the holidays, because I know that despite the holidays being good, bad, all these things, how you're feeling in your your own individual worlds in relation to the big world, whatever the case may be, it's just draining. The holidays, I feel like, for at least me, this time of year can just be a draining experience. What about for you?
Yeah, you said it. Especially with work and everything, it's going to be a lot. Yeah, because like I said, luckily school's almost out for at least a month.
Which I love that for you.
Yeah, and then yeah, work's probably gonna suck, and then yeah, just cold, and I don't like it. I don't like the holidays. Yeah, no, I'm not a fan.
I get it. It's like this time of year, it's just can be pretty strenuous on the mental health. So
I want an Australian Christmas.
Why do you want an Australian Christmas?
It's hot, nice and warm. Actually, maybe not Australian. I learned something. I found out that based on the angle of the Earth, it's like, because people in Australia are like, God damn, it's so hot during the summer here, and it's like typically it's way hotter there. Mm-hmm. It's because the angle of the Earth, like the tilt.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's it. See, we're just learning on this stream. Like in here, we learn.
Mm-hmm. Because people think, oh, the summer's so damn hot because we're closer to the sun at like within its orbit.
Mm-hmm.
No, it all has to do with the angle of the Earth. With basically it's like when the Earth is like angled, let's say because how the sun kind of sits lower in the sky during the winter.
Mm-hmm.
So half that light, it's not hitting directly, it's kind of bouncing off. It's not like directly like slamming into the earth, so that's why it's colder. Yeah. But so Australia gets the same thing, but during their summer, they are near on the Earth's orbit nearest the sun. So it's a double whammy.
Oh, dang.
So they get the direct heat like we do in the summer, but they're closer. Like we're closer to the sun at that time also.
Oh, ding ding.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
I mean, I guess that isn't something I have considered, and for any of our Australian listeners, sorry, I'll do better.
Yeah, have fun with your bugs.
So yeah, I very much I think it's like that's just ultimately the thing is that despite the relationship or like feelings towards the weather, the impact of just like at least just where we're at in the world of it getting darker, getting colder, it's just very impactful to the mental health. And like the desire, isolation, all these things, it just kind of really adds and is impactful to like things just feeling internally okay,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's this modality? Is that what it was?
Yeah, modality is just a fancy word for like the terms we use for like certain like therapeutic approaches, right? So I'm bringing in today like what is like the most common modality in therapist world and in therapy world, which is something that's commonly used in like not just trauma or like my backgrounds, but like many different backgrounds. But I thought it was going to be very helpful. And so I was thinking it was like it would be really great to kind of bring this in today, especially with like everything that's going on. So and I'll also be sharing a tool for anyone that would like to take on a tool or a skill to kind of put under their like or in their back pocket.
We're doing good, Michaela. I hope you're doing good also.
What I'm going to be talking about today is a modality that is called CBT. Have you heard of CBT before?
CP? What?
CBT.
Oh, Charlie Ball Toronto.
Yeah, it's Charlie Ball Toronto.
Okay.
That's our new band.
Charlie Bravo. What the hell's T?
State.
Theta? I don't know. But
Theta? Maybe
it's
Theta.
not Theta.
Anyway. Okay.
I don't think so.
So CBT is a modality that supports a challenge and emphasis that that has us better understanding not what causes emotional distress in people or individual experiences, but like much more like how an individual interprets or views situations, and how they kind of like define the information they receive from the world, both internally and externally. Because many a times, especially what we've kind of talked about in the stream before, is that we've talked about it's like, oh, well, it all comes down to your perspective. Well, it's really easy, I think, for folks to just say, well, you just need to change your perspective on things.
Yes, I hear that crap all the time.
I think it's like it's much more complex than that, because the thing is like, and this is where I'm gonna challenge a lot of people, because a lot of people take this very personally, what I'm about to say. I get pushback from my clients all the time on this one. So I'm gonna ask anyone that's listening that to really hear me when I say it's not a call out to anybody. However, if the shoe fits, lace it up, because we're going on a good run. So come on, let's go. We're going on a journey.
Oh, my knees.
Oh, let's do some stretching first. So the stretching will be this information. So the thing is that cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, can like helps people better or change the way that and the perspective they in relation to the way they observe their thoughts, physical sensations that they have, and ultimately the behaviors, right? Mm-hmm. So, and the thing is that at least according to CBT, our physical symptoms, our behaviors and what we do, and our thoughts all go into each other. They're all tied into each other, right?
Right.
Well, the thing is that many a times people in a very rigid sense, which again is no blame to their own, is that many times folks have they receive information or stimuli, right? Whether it's from internal spaces or external spaces, and they have a cognition, right? And they have this cognitive thought, and they believe that when they have a thought and then they have like they attach a feeling to it and they have a behavior that comes as a result, and they think that there is no ability for this pattern to change. There are no other answers to this thought, to this feeling, to this behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing that CBT tries to emphasize is that what actually is going on is that we have a plethora of thoughts, a plethora of feelings, and as a result, there's a multitude of behaviors that can come as a result, right?
Right.
So many a times when folks have thoughts about things in the world, and they may not like the way that their brain thinks about the world, then they feel bad towards themselves, just as an example, for having the thought. And then they may engage in behaviors such as isolation or restriction of like connection with others, because they are scared, or like they are fueled by shame and guilt, or self-ridicule or something along the lines, and therefore they don't connect with the world because they believe this thought is truth, this feeling is truth, and there's only a certain amount of behaviors that can come out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which CBT says that's not true, and ultimately I also agree. CBT tries to say that our brain tries to make patterns, right? That's what our brains want, patterns all the time, just as desperately as people, even if for folks that say like, I don't like being put in a box. Of course you don't like being put in a box. However, our bodies and our systemic socialization from the world around us, especially in a Western civilization, is motivated by the desire of putting things in boxes, because boxes equal predictability, which equals safety, right? And whether we are aware of it or not, a lot of our behavior is motivated with the underlying desire of safety. A lot of our behavior is motivated by that, if not all, right?
Right.
So cognitive behavior therapy uses tactics to try to change or implement small changes, or even bearable altered direction to where or how our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors play into each other and kind of impact one another. A lot of times in this hard wiring of our brain is that we have these thoughts which impact how we view the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you were exposed to an environment where there's a lot of yelling and a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of hurt, you will have a view of the world that's impacted by that experience, and as it's hardwired in your brain, right?
Right.
And so much that your brain will constantly be seeking it. And that's why when people are like, why do I always find X type of people, or these types of, am I always finding myself being bullied all the time, or people hurting me all the time? It's not because it's that the truth is that people are hurt or bullies or anything like that. It's that your brain is seeking it. Your brain is looking for it because it is using that as the foundation of predictability. And when it finds that and it's looking for that, is that despite these toxic environments and harmful environments being harmful or not harmful, the brain can't tell that difference. What the brain does is that it creates a foundation of predictability and then creates patterns in order for you to function and survive in those environments. And then it has you attached and seeking them because despite despite it being toxic or not toxic, you at least know how to maneuver and function through those types of environments, which equates to safety because predictability equates to safety. Right? This is why the foundation to which people and children are exposed to at a young age is so impactful to how they view the world as they get older. Right? And so to wrap up my quick version of this, and then we'll expand with questions, and if anybody has any thoughts in the chat and everything like that, is that what CBT tries to focus is like very similar to a cycle of thought, feeling, like stimuli, or thoughts, feelings, and then behavior. Is that it tells you that you need to do small changes in breaking the patterns of these cycles and extend yourself compassion and understanding and consistency to keep doing these small changes, because the hard wiring in your brain is going to need time to not just learn new stuff, but it needs to unlearn the foundations it's based upon. So many a times when you if you've ever heard a therapist or somebody say, using the skill of like telling yourself and looking at yourself and saying affirmations to yourself in the mirror, and people are like, oh no, I can't do that because I feel like I'm lying to myself. And I'm like, here's the kicker: you are already lying to yourself, because no child comes into the world hating themselves. They are taught self-hatred, directly, indirectly, through people with good intentions, through people with bad or poor or just a lack of intention. That's there's so many pieces to it, and it's so gray, and it does not fit the black and white mold, right? But it's like, but when you engage in something like the affirmations, that is the break in the cycle. And what you do is you're literally creating new neural pathways in your brain to where you will eventually believe that, because your brain learns that the old neural pathways are no longer being reinforced and therefore are no longer beneficial. And from there, in that consistency, very similar to exercising, or to for anyone that's physical health supporter, it's like you can't just start going into the marathon. You need to start stretching, you need to get the right shoes, you need to get the right clothes, you need to do your research, you need to do all these things, and train and practice and be consistent, and then you get to the marathon. So of course you're not going to start believing you're great overnight if you've had a lifetime of lessons that reinforced a distaste of self. And that's what CBT focuses on.
Gotcha. Before we continue on, Alktal, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I don't know if I am. They are back. If you'd recall, last time they were getting ready to finishing their graduation project, but their girlfriend had broken up with them, and I believe that they were saying like, oh, I'm not really feeling anything right now because they were so busy.
Yeah.
Well, they are back.
Oh, hello.
They say, if they're still here, hopefully, says, hi guys, remember me from last week? I have good news. I finished my graduation project. Yay! But now, since I'm alone, the breakup symptoms started to hit.
Ooh.
Yeah, this is kind of what we were expecting that to happen.
Yeah,
well, what are you feeling?
Yeah, like, tell us, like, because again, to each their own about what breakups look like, because again, grief and loss is very different for each individual. And even in that, like, I always want to reinforce in the concept of grief and loss is that despite the way things end between people, whether it be relationships, romantically, platonically, friend wise, death, moving, just changes in dynamic and environments, despite the relationship with it, it's still going to impact an individual. So, because our brains are so needing of consistency, so when we are so accustomed to somebody being there or being a part of our lives, and all of a sudden there's a change in that shift, it can be impactful, in one way or another. So yeah, tell us how you're doing, and hopefully you're still here. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, and what's the word? Congratulations on being able to stifle that long enough to get your project done.
Yeah, that's
you're
freaking
still here.
amazing.
Yeah, so that's good. At least you were able to really focus on what you had to do. So you should be proud of that. Oh, here they are. This says, "I'm feeling empty." If that's the right wording for it, yeah, I think that works.
Yeah.
I feel like this. I mean, I can kind of relate it to like the whole like lack of friends thing, the isolation thing that I deal with.
Mm-hmm.
It's because you're so busy with doing stuff, and then not only did you lose someone that was around, but now the project is over. So you went from having all this stuff to preoccupy your mind to having literally all of it just gone. It's like you ever like be in a concert or something, or where it's really loud, and then you just like walk outside, but there's like no traffic out there, and it's just like dead silent. You're like, whoa, like all the stimulation's just gone.
Yeah.
I imagine it's probably like that. They say it feels like I forgot how my life was before. Yeah, I kind of get that. Yeah, it's because you didn't really have to think about it because you were so preoccupied with stuff, and now that that's over, you have this big empty spot of, well, now what?
Yeah, I feel like, because again, in the movement of things, is that like this, it kind of reminds, this is why I'm saying it's very similar to grief and loss. It's like, I don't know if you've ever heard of this one, but have you ever heard folks that like they may have like experienced a death, and then in order to like process it, they throw themselves back into their work like pretty quickly after the loss? They're like constantly doing work or something like that. Because the thing is that like if you've been in here before, if this is a new concept, I'll expand on it again because I don't mind. I think it's a really crucial piece for all human beings to know. But the thing about attachment is that it's not necessarily how we attach to people, but it's like how we attach to consistency and kind of a sense of safety, right? And the thing is that when there's partnership that's happening, and then all of a sudden there's a change, there is a break in the cycle of attachment. So it feels empty despite the rational piece of course, that person's not there. But it also is like there is a lack of needs being met in one way or another. So what happens is that for many people, they internalize it, or they try to avoid it, and throw themselves in things to kind of not sit there and feel it. But I would definitely encourage, like, even being here talking about it is helpful. And it's important to know the process of grief and loss is unique to each individual and will take the time that it needs, however it needs to show up and be processed.
So, do you have any suggestions on what they should be doing at this point? Should they be sitting there and thinking about it and just kind of absorbing it all, or maybe go distract yourself with something? Or
I suggest, I suggest the engagement. Like, again, this even goes back into what we were talking about, CBT. in cognitive behavioral therapy, because again, we're talking about behavior piece. I want to validate that I know many times when people are experiencing changes in relationship statuses in their life, that many times people either want to do a lot of stuff all the time, or maybe they don't want to do anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
And they fall into these extremes. I would encourage just trying to find some sense of predictability and consistency in your life. So it's like, if you're someone that always met and did something on Friday nights, let's just say, hypothetically, I would encourage you, despite the feeling piece, to still engage in the behavior of doing that. Because the thing is, how it's going to be processed in with it, like how it's going to process with you, that's just going to be time. Like, I can't emphasize enough that the idea of like stages, or excuse me, yeah, stages of um what is the, I think it's like stages of grief or something like that, or stages of loss or something. um when people think it's like, oh, like you have to go through the anger and you have to go through this and then you get to this, it's like, I don't think it's like that, because it sounds like it's steps, and it has to look a certain way. It's like, I just encourage you to welcome that's an ebb and flow of however you need to feel. I would encourage engaging in hobbies and doing things, not necessarily to like distract, but to also minimize just constant rumination. Because when you sit in constant rumination, without like genuine processing to like understanding yourself, like if you're just sitting there beating yourself up for like hours, as an example, that's not processing. You're engaging in a form of what is called mental self-harm when you just sit there and beat yourself up for hours. But when you're sitting there and you're like, I need to just feel this and go through the motions, have a good cry, feel angry, feel happy, ruminating, or not reminiscing, not ruminating, reminiscing, doing these things is like fantastic. But I think holding boundaries of designated time to that is really crucial, because you don't want to overextend it, because too much of a good thing could be bad. But you don't want to avoid it at the same time. You got to kind of find a sweet spot that works for you. But nonetheless, give yourself grace. Get into hobbies, have a good cry, allow the feelings to flow as they need to, and things will process as they do. That's what I would provide.
All right, that sounds good. They also added, now this might change some things. So they say, so I think I forgot to mention this. My breakup is kind of different in the fact that I live in the Middle East where traditional marriages still exist. So we both loved each other, but since it's traditional, both families have to accept the marriage. So that's why it's kind of hard to get over the fact that I lost her without an argument or a real reason. Okay, so it sounds like, if I'm picking this up correctly, it wasn't his or his girlfriend's decision. It sounds like it was the family's decision.
Okay. Well, I will say that I still hold to what I'm saying. It doesn't change too much to what I'm saying, because even in that cultural factor to it, it's like it's really difficult, and my heart goes out to you, because it sounds like, because again, this is a very much the class of culture, and because again, this is coming down to this piece of like what is culturally supported and sound, and it sounds like you come from a collective culture, at least, where it's like there's a lot of more impact on like family say, and very multiple other factors, and it just sounds really difficult, and that just breaks my heart. Again, in the whole like my dynamics, my values and feelings about these types of things, it's like it breaks my heart because it sounds like you have genuine care, and this is just the cultural piece to it all. So again, I still would say if like upholding that cultural piece of like the family influence of like the say of marriage and so forth, and you can't be with this individual that you care about to still allow yourself to process and feel what you need to feel in your own due time, because it sounds like it sounds like that lack of control of what's going on for you, and that just sounds really difficult, and I'm so sorry. I really am sorry that this is what's going on for you right now.
Yeah, that sounds tough. That's I can't even imagine that. I mean, that's man. It's like this is something I really wanted, and I can't have it because other people said so. It's just
Yeah.
man, that's frustrating. With the whole clash of cultures thing, I've actually, I believe this is what's happening. I'm just hearing this through the grapevine about these two classmates of mine that I've seen around for the last couple semesters. So this guy who is a Muslim, he really liked this girl, this white girl, and they were always together all the time, like attached at the hip for the last few semesters. I think she had a boyfriend at the time, whatever. But she broke up with her boyfriend, and guess who's right there? He is. And so it seems like I think they're dating now, and she really wants to have sex with the guy, but he can't due to religious reasons. And
Yeah.
it seems like it's putting a little bit of strain on it, and he's just like, why do women in America are want to have sex? It's like, well, it's seen different here. It's I don't really know how to explain it, because don't ask me about dating. But yeah, I mean, I can see how it's like, yeah, it's a whole different thing. And I was like, that's the first time I've seen the guy turning down the sex, which he wants, but he has to wait till marriage for.
Which I would say, I know it's hard. It's like one way to say, in that it's one piece of it all to say of like, oh, it's like, why are American women like that? I'm like, but that's just a very broad statement, right? It's like, the thing is that there is like, just from different cultural backgrounds and different just unique individualistic pieces, is like the relationship with sex is very just complex for different folks, like whether it be sexuality, cultural pieces, ethical, ethnic, just many factors, right? And so it's like, it's just important to understand. It's like, I always think, like, at least in my understanding about sex, and like, is like, because mammals, especially humans, are hardwired to have the emotion of lust, right?
Right.
However, like, the emotion of lust is motivated for the reproduction of
People.
gene pools,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Make people.
But just make people, like, that's it, right? In a very limbic system piece of it all, right? However, the socialization related to this experience and the sexuality piece and cultural piece of this can be really impactful to the relationship of this factor. And so there's no wrong or right way of how it is when done in factors related to that are like respectful of the individual. But it definitely can cause a lot of clash for many folks. So yeah, it's all quite tricky. Being a human is hard.
Boy, you said it.
Yeah. I say that to my clients all the time, because they're just like, it's like, I always feel like people think that you're supposed to have the answers, and I was like, can you name one person that has all of the answers? Truly, like, I don't even have all the answers. I was like, and I know a lot about how humans function, and I still don't like I feel like trying to quote find all the answers is an unrealistic journey. But you could try your darndest.
Yeah, I'm sure I could
And
find people with all the answers. They usually stand on street corners with signs that say homeless, but
they have a lot of answers.
they do have a lot of answers. A lot of them are wrong, but they do have a lot of answers.
Exactly.
Let's just say
And
they
it's
wouldn't
like,
make it
because
to
it's
the end of
all
Jeopardy.
subjective.
Yeah.
I was laughing because like in the idea of like having all the answers, there's a homeless individual that was like commonly live as like near where I live. Like very fine individual, very respectful, kind of like does on his own thing, right? But what I find so funny about the concept of like answers is like this person is very much homeless, but they seem to find ways to take care of themselves. And so when Artemis and I were walking past this individual, they're like, "Hey, do you have like a sound system?" And I had like to like try to support Artemis in getting out of this conversation because I was like, this isn't a productive, like this is gonna go somewhere. Like we don't want to get wrapped up into that, but you know, I can't say that real time because we're right in front of the individual, right?
I rode my bike here from Atlanta.
Like, wow.
Okay.
I was like, your legs must be tired. Like, but all of a sudden, as I'm like sitting here outside, I could hear music playing, and I was like, hey, how do you know?
Did he get one?
Yeah, the music. It was from the music, like it was from the freaking surround, whatever he was trying to pitch to us. And I was just like, dang, he found the answer. I was like, when there's a will, it seems. When there is a will.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, well, I mean, that's with anything. If you want it bad enough, you'll get it.
That's very true.
How badly do you want it?
How deep is your love? So one of the things I wanted to say of why I wanted to bring up about the CBT thing today is because CBT is.
Hold on, real quick. Alctal says, I appreciate you listening, guys. I'm still trying my best to find closure for it in my heart. Well, just hang in there. You know, we wish you the best of luck.
Truly,
yeah.
Truly, it's not easy from what you shared, and if anyone, and I want to make this very clear, just from my perspective alone, if anyone tells you that this is something to easily get over, they're trying to sell you something. Yeah. I don't know what it is, but they are. This is not easy, and it breaks my heart more because it's like it sounds like you have a lot of care for this individual, and not being able to be there or to be with them, it just sounds like my heart goes out to you, and I just hope for the best, and keep us in the loop of how things are, and feel free to come back around in any support that you'd like to hold for yourself.
Yeah. So maybe next week, if you want to come back and let us know how you're feeling then, maybe you'll be better, maybe you're worse, hopefully better, not worse, and we can maybe pick up on it again.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. So Charlie Bravo Tortilla. Go for
it. Charlie Bravo Tortilla. So cognitive behavior therapy is set up to support and target a lot of support when it comes to concepts such as like depression, anxiety, the symptoms related to those factors, or anxiety at a chronic level, which may start to pour into like stress or panic. Right. So what's important to know is like for the brain, for an individual, despite depression being, or how it could show up for folks, is like it could be a very distressing experience for people. And like I feel like sometimes people say depression, because I want to start off with depression. I feel like people say depression as a very blanket statement, but I don't feel like people truly understand what ways that depression can show up, or how cognitive distortion, so distorted thinking, as a result of like trauma, pain, socialization, ethical background, um, you know, um, these types of factors can contribute to depression.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to kind of take a moment to go over depression and like why something like cognitive behavior therapy can be helpful. So it's like some of the things. So I'm going to break it down into what it would look like, of how symptoms of depression can show up for an individual. So depression, sometimes people think is like, it's like, oh, it's somebody that may be sleeping all the time, and somebody that doesn't emote a lot, or they don't express a lot of feelings and stuff like that, but which is, I just don't feel is necessarily true. So I'm going to take a moment to quickly just list off some ways that depression and how it could look. Okay. So depression could look like poor concentration. It could look like impacted libido. It could look like chronic headaches, maybe even to the point of migraines. The experience of sadness, guilt, numb, consistent to chronic tearfulness, irritability, lack of confidence, self-loathing. Contrary to popular belief, it can cause insomnia and can be a contributing factor to insomnia. It can impact appetite, not just having a lack of appetite, but it could be an overstimulation of appetite. It can contribute to suicidal ideation. It can impact memory. It could, there pessimism, lethargic tendencies, isolation. These kinds of things are like true signs and impacts of depression that could be going on in an individual that didn't begin with them. However, they are living with it, and they feel that they are limited to like that life only looks like that, and that could really be effective towards how people feel, or it can be impactful to functionality for an individual. Does any of that kind of like stand out to you from those symptoms I identified?
I think there was probably 3 of them on there I didn't relate to.
Okay.
I counted 12 that I did relate to.
I'm like, oh damn.
And other ones, I think there was like one other one I was like, maybe, I don't know.
Well, the thing is, like, there's physical symptoms of like as well that are related to it, and in those physical symptoms, there's like the difficulties of the impact of sleep, the impact of appetite, tearfulness, impacted to sex drive. If you're somebody that is sexually driven, if not, teach their own. But like physical symptoms of depression can affect like the way we think and like what we do and how we feel, right? So what happens is like then this, like when we kind of get lost in this, we can have what is like this like vicious mental cycle, right? Yeah, I don't know if you've heard it, or I know that we've talked about it here. It's like, but you could have this vicious mental cycle, and the longer that cycle can be persistent in an individual's life, whether it's a strong cycle or a not so strong cycle, we may just lose our tolerance to like managing it, and just being constantly exposed to it. So it's like harder to cope with life, and it impacts our ability to do things, and it kind of just then impacts our like the individual mentally and physically, right? So many times when people are like, oh, depression, just think happy thoughts and get over it. Yeah, that doesn't work.
Yeah,
And
that kind
anyone
of
that
work.
tells you like anyone that tries to tell you it's like if you're depressed, like, oh, just think happier. Yeah, they don't know what they're talking about. Just don't listen to them. They're dumb.
Yeah.
Tell them to find us on Thursday.
Yeah, people tell me that crap all the time, and there's like I've noticed that it's gotten worse for me personally because stuff that I know would normally make me laugh, it's like it doesn't do it anymore. I listen to it, I go objectively, I know that's funny, but I don't feel anything anymore. The like music I listen to just doesn't hit the spot anymore. It's just all like, yep, that's just a thing that's there.
Yeah. So our thoughts can get pretty negative, especially if it's like we could have negative thoughts, but depression can exacerbate it. So we can be very, very critical and unkind to ourselves, and we might engage in stuff that are called cognitive distortions, where we do things like we might overgeneralize, catastrophize, jump to conclusions, engage in black and white thinking. We might think that we know what other people are thinking, which is called mind reading. Nobody, gosh, I can't say this enough. If I could do this just one time without getting in trouble, I freaking would. If I could just respectfully shake one of my clients, without hurting them, and just say they're like, I can read people's mind. No, you can't. No, you cannot. You cannot read anybody's mind. And if you really truly believe that, that is a cognitive distortion, or you have a schizo-based diagnosis that is not official, by the way. And it's like, and you need support. So anyway, that being said, so it gets really difficult to look and experience, not only look at quote positive perspective, but it can be difficult to experience positive feelings. And when I say positive, negative feelings, because I don't want people to think there's feelings that are good or feelings are bad. All feelings are fine. I call positive, negative feelings of feelings that add to us and feelings that take away from us. So negative in the subtracting way and positive in the adding to. Okay?
Right.
So research has shown that the main impacts to depression can be linked to factors that include and yet are not limited to, one way or another. It could be genetics, it could be physiological makeup, it could be early exposure to difficult life experiences, and or it could be ongoing stress or life events that just have not stopped or have gotten a chance for there to be a redirection. In my awareness of trauma, I would like to also reinforce, and I have a great article I wish I could just give to everyone in the freaking world if I could, that says that despite if you're an individual that has experienced trauma, the way that it sits in our brain is that the way that it's set up in our brain is that it doesn't sit in our brain and the neural patterns that are equated to memories. There is such a misconception like, oh, well, it's like, well, the trauma happened in the past, I should just get over it. That isn't how it works. So I want to quickly read something very quick. And it's going to be a lot of like psychological jargon. I'm going to read it first, and then I'm going to kind of use different terms. Big words, and I'm going to do it to much more like digestible words. It says, so from the research, again, this article that was published in November 30th of 2023, there's this article that indicates that they did this research related to PTSD. So I'm going to read the abstract. It says, for people with PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder, recall of traumatic memories often displays as intrusions that differ profoundly from processing of, quote, regular negative memories. So again, the way that we recall traumatic memories is often is different of how it's stored in our brain from the processing of just negative memories or memories that have negative or like kind of a negative impact to self. Okay, so these mnemonic features fueled theories speculating a unique cognitive state linked with traumatic memories. Yet, to date, little empirical evidence supports this view. So this is what they did. They said, here we examined neural activities of patients with PTSD who were listening to narratives depicting their own memories. So they were listening to narratives depicting their own memories, meaning they were listening to somebody or themselves sharing back to them the recall of traumatic events in their lives, however they define traumatic events. An intersubjective representational similarity analysis, so the methods that they use, of cross-subject semantic content and neural patterns revealed. So the way that the method that they use in order to look at this and compare revealed in these neural patterns in their brain the differentiation in hippocampal representation by narrative type, which is semantically similar sad autobiographical memories, elicited similar neural representations across participants. So
it is repeatable.
So when they were going over this, they were seeing that there were similarities in that the ways in the areas in the brain to which were being lit up. That's what was going on, right?
Right.
And there's differentiation because the thing is that the way that we recall things is that it can light up the part in our hippocampus, which is in our limbic system, to where memories will light up. However, it's that the way that these can be start lighting up in our system is that it's not lighting up in the memory part. It's believing that our brain believes this is happening real time and we haven't left that environment.
So it's more on the monkey brain side of things.
It's always monkey brain. Well, like, we always have to go through monkey brain, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying that our brain, in the quickest version I can say this, contrary to popular belief, is that in this evidence of this research I'm talking about, is that contrary to popular belief that when people experience trauma, they believe that it's just memories that they're recalling, right? But what's going on is that when they're experiencing trauma, and if there has not been a chance for the trauma to be processed and to be a break or to be recovery achieved or safety or predictability achieved for an individual, their brains think they are still in the environment of the trauma, not that it's a memory that happened in the past. Because it says, by contrast, within the same individuals, the semantically similar trauma memories were not represented similarly. Furthermore, we were able to decode memory type from hippocampal multivoxel patterns. So again, these are not encoding in our memories the same way that we have thought they have this whole time. And it says, finally, individual symptom severity modulated semantic representation of the traumatic narratives in the posterior cingulate cortex. Taken together, these findings suggest that traumatic memories are an alternative cognitive entity that deviates from memory per se. So they are saying that traumatic memories are a whole separate experience in how they sit in our brains, varies to the belief that they are just memories that we hold. They do not store in the same place as compared to this narrative or this research, right?
Yeah, so they store, I'm guessing from what you're saying, more like it kind of like when someone hears like a loud bang nearby, they automatically flinch. It's more of like a reaction. It's stored in that area, I would guess, more of the like fight or flight area instead of the, you know, memory area.
Well, the thing is that the memory area and the trauma response area are very close to one another.
Mm-hmm.
So hold on, let me get this real quick to kind of like see if I can better explain like the different areas to which they're at. So it's like the difference is that let me see if I can get something.
I just feel like you're saying, oh, like I said, I'm just trying to piece it together. Like, I feel like you're saying that the way traumatic stuff happens, or when stuff, like, triggers traumatic, like, memories, I don't know what the other word you want to use for it, but when traumatic stuff is triggered in the brain, it's like the reaction part of the brain kicks on instead of the responsive part of the brain.
So it's when it comes to the posterior cingulate cortex, it is the backmost part of the cingulate cortex, which is lying beneath, or which basically, long story short, is the upper part of the limbic system. But the thing is that because of this, it's what's going on is that it's storing, like the way that this is processing, it's not storing in the place such as where it's closer to like the separation of autobiographical memory, which is separate, right? It's like just like where you're saying things very matter of factly. It's storing in the same place where we experience such things such as like very similar to like emotion and impulse. And so that's our reaction brain, right?
Yeah.
And so the thing is that many a times when people have experienced trauma and they continue to live their life, even though rationally they are no longer in the environment to which the traumatic event is happening, the trauma is still stored inside them. And until it is properly encoded and processed by the brain to shift over into the autobiographical area of the brain, it keeps thinking it's there. I think this is so crucial to understanding trauma and understanding humans, because many people think that trauma is easy to understand. However, it is quite complex. And what Gabor Mate, which is somebody I adore in therapy world, says that if we really think about trauma, we have to think about what trauma is in even the most Latin word, which I'm not going to say because I don't know Latin, but I will say the definition. And the Latin definition of trauma is to be wounded. So any time that an individual experiences a interpersonal or like a relational wound, or they had somebody emotionally abandon them, or even they had a parent by chance who had really great intentions and were really harsh and critical of a child, even though they were there and consistent and persistent and everything like that, the way that the messages encode or lack encoding in the individual play a part on how the trauma sits with the person. So they can be constantly motivated by trauma, and they may be feeling that there is no other way other than to live and see life as this way, because their brain thinks they are still in the traumatic environment and they are still in survival mode
Right.
as a result. And if you are an individual, let's just say, that was exposed to this type of environment, hypothetically, at the age of 5, and your body just still has not had a chance to properly process and encode the information from what happened at 5, and now you're getting older and now you're 35, 45, 55, your body's tolerance of this gets so significantly impacted that it believes that there will be no change. Here, therefore, symptoms of anxiety, depression, panic disorder, which is you get diagnosed with panic disorder if you have chronic panic attacks, or just a certain amount of panic attacks, to be honest. Obsessive compulsive disorder, personality disorders, these various types of way, which again, this is why it doesn't matter about the diagnoses, it's about the symptoms more than anything. Once your body is exposed to that for so long, your brain sends out the signal of, hey, this isn't changing, there's no way out. I think the only thing best to do is, for lack of better words, is for you to end your life, because this is constant and chronic pain, and the best thing that you could do to yourself is get out of it. So
Right.
this is why in my work, to kind of wrap up my little spiel, is that why when people say, I think we need to talk about suicidality more commonly, I don't think it should be so taboo to talk about, because I think it's a significant reflection of people living in this constant chronic traumatic state to which their body has not felt like they have gotten out of. And by even talking about the suicide, we are allowing processing to occur, even in the small bits that it is, and that rewiring can change. This is why consistency is important, community is important, understanding, self-compassion, and empathy, and most importantly, doing things like small actions such as giving yourself opportunities to engage in like affirmations to yourself is life and death. And I refuse to like minimize it, because you can't blame a person for feeling like they're always in pain if their brain thinks they're always in pain.
Right.
Mic drop.
Please don't. They're expensive.
Oh, it is true. Let me pick that up real quick. But it's true. This is what I truly think.
Yes. And it
Yes.
all makes sense. At
Yeah.
least to me, because, it's probably one reason why I've been stressing out over it so much. Is, I've said this verbatim out loud to friends and stuff, for a while now. Like when I was hanging out with Asian man for a while, I straight up told him, I was like, dude, I'm not okay. I need help. And then that's when everyone starts walking away. It's just like, ugh.
Well, because a lot of times people don't know how to manage it within themselves. That's why I keep saying it's not you why they're walking away. It's because they themselves don't know how to deal with it with self to self.
Right.
And it sucks. And it really sucks. This is why the people you surround yourself is so crucial. When people are like, well, I don't let people influence me, not you, but like the universal you for everybody, that if anybody relates to this, is like, the people that are around me don't have influence. I'm like, the people that you allow around you have a direct impact to your sanity. And that is why I am very critical of like who I allow myself to be around, and for a long for how many, whatever the time is.
Right.
I surround myself with folks that try to welcome challenge and change and growth, because and empathy and compassion and so forth, because I already use a lot of resources and time and money to freaking stick around on this floating rock, and you think I'm just gonna be out here exposing myself to pain for free? No, thank you.
But it's free.
Good. No, just because it's free doesn't mean it's good.
That is true.
Yeah. So, what do you feel stood out to you the most with what I identified today? I should write a book.
Yeah, go for it.
No, I'm tired already.
Like the thought already exhausted me.
Dude, just saying all that, like, I think that all the time. This is what I'm saying. Like, I always say I'm 85, and you're like, you're not 85. Like, I know that I'm 28 years old. Do you think this is what 28-year-olds talk about?
Yes. All of them, all the time.
That's what they do on Friday nights.
They're like, hey man, let's go grab a buttery nipple shot and talk about mental health.
That's me and the homies. And the other piece I do want to say, I just gotta find it real quick.
I would love to see you get together with all your friends at a bar with, like, I don't know, 10 of you, and like y'all order a shot, like, to mental health damage, yeah, or emotional trauma. Cheers! And the rest of the bar's like, what the fuck is happening over there?
Oh, it is so funny. Like, in my opinion, whenever like me and a bunch of clinicians get together, like, I even got dinner with like two folks in the field the other day, and we were just, and like there was another individual was there that was one of my colleagues' partner, and they were trying to like come up, and they were bringing in like these very controversial, very broad, hot button like questions, right? And in my opinion, they were very kind of like broad. And the thing is that like, I know if I was in another setting with other folks, like they would be like, oh no, blah blah blah, whatever the case may be, right? It's like, but there's such elegance in the way that I feel like being with my clinical friends, where it's like, well, it's very gray, and here's these thoughts, and it's very unique to individual, and all these things, and then we'll make silly little like jokes related to like modalities and stuff like that, and we look like we're like too calm and laugh at things that don't make sense for folks that may not know what we're talking about. And I think that we look nuts. But I like that we look nuts because we know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And we don't have to yell at each other to make a point. We never do. It's like we get passionate, sure, but we never are like yelling, because we were like, that will get none of us anywhere. So
yeah,
I love that shit. So
real quick, Alcatal is back. They're saying, I would like to add something since you're talking around the subject, since I'm the funny guy in our friend group. So when I pointed out that I don't have the will to live, they thought I was kidding. How do they deal with that? Because that seems to, like, I've heard this story before. You know, like I've heard it around over my life. It's like, this guy was like, you know, you hear, they're like, oh, he said it all the time, but we just thought he was joking. You know?
Again, that comes down to like, I want to really respond to this. I think, again, it's a reflection of the relationship folks have about it. So it's like, one of the things, like, I hate to say it as I am, but I just think that it's like important to say this directly. Is like, if this is really true that you're somebody that is like experiencing something like suicidality, I think there's a piece of saying like, hey, this isn't a joke and this is what it is. And again, that's that you're expressing what is called an emotional boundary, which we talked about a couple streams before. The thing is like, if when you're exerting an emotional boundary of like, hey, this is what's truly going on with me, and you're making it very clear, and there is still a lack of receptiveness from the people that are around you, one of the things I want to make very clear is that it's not, you're not doing something wrong, and it's much more that it's a reflection of what these folks are having a relationship related to the concept. However, I would very much encourage you to find the resource that you need from folks that are much more understanding, because again, they just may not be able to connect with that, but that doesn't mean you don't deserve understanding and support. And it really sucks. That's why when it comes to those concepts, it's like, hey, like, that's why I still am like, even if like I have my friends knowing that they are not suicidal and they make jokes about that on the side, like when I'm not around everybody, I'm like, hey, are you doing okay? Like, what's going on, right? And just holding space for them, because commonly, like, it's important to also know another piece is this one. It could be coming from a very real place, and jokes and joking can be a very safe way for people to talk about really difficult conversations and concepts. This is why like comedians say things and there could be really dark, and it's like tee it's like because it takes off the edge of a very real concept. So it's like if you took that concept, changed the connotation, changed the way that you pitched it, it could really change the tone of what's being talked about.
Yeah.
Right? But another piece is that, especially on a generational factor, is that like there are a lot of suicide jokes that come up, and that is also very tricky because for many folks that could also just be an attempt of connection, is like joking up and doing these kind of concepts related to suicidality. I think it gets really muddied very quickly, and the people that are really experiencing can get lost, or can get kind of fall through the cracks pretty quickly. So it's really tricky. I would just definitely, if the people that are in your life are not taking it seriously, I encourage you to know that you still deserve resources and support, and to find them the best that you can, as safely as you can. Because again, it's a very taboo concept for some folks, different cultures, different backgrounds. But I definitely know that there's resources out there, and I encourage you to keep on doing your best to try to find the support you deserve.
Yeah. Let's see. They just said, so my friends noticed that I'm not throwing jokes around. So they said, what's wrong? And I straight up made it clear, but it was hard for them to accept that the most positive jokester around them are experiencing this. So, yeah, I mean, there you go. He's stating that his friends just don't know how to handle that kind of news, because they probably fall back onto him since he's the happy guy. So they go to him because he's the guy that makes them feel happy. So if he's in a rut, they might be thinking, well, shit, what am I going to do if the happy guy's having a hard time? Uh-oh.
I need to make it very, very clear to you and to anyone that's listening, if you're somebody that relates to being the happy guy or the funny guy, I'm gonna, just is what it is. If that's not how you want to that's not how you want to be depicted, you can change that dynamic with how you're perceived at any time. You are not obligated to continuously uphold that role, at all. What happens is that many times people think like, well, I have to be insert this role because that's how people are accustomed to me being.
I
right?
have to be the strong one. I have to be the Rock.
Yeah.
Not Dwayne Johnson, but like, you know, the boulder that holds people down. Or
right.
whatever.
And it's like, but what's going on is that what could be happening is a trauma response that's called fawning. And fawning is a tactic that people use in order to supporting themselves in obtaining emotional needs or to minimize emotional discomfort or just, again, back to safety. I definitely know that I'm somebody that's still working on this one because I felt a lot of my self-value was how I showed up for other people. And I'm learning to challenge and change the relationship between when I showing up because I want to support people because I also just value, and it gets really muddy for myself too because I value caring and supporting people, but also the line of too much care and too much support. And that's the same thing about being the funny or happy person because it's about holding the tone and the expectancy of continuously holding that tone, right? But that doesn't have to be your job. And if it's something that you still like to do, still understanding a healthy relationship with it of who are like of basically like reading the room and understanding of like when to apply it or not. It's not easy. I encourage you to take your time because, again, going back to what I talked about cognitive behavioral therapy, is that it's not something you're going to change overnight. But when you do small actions, like when there is a time you're like, oh, I should, like you don't want to joke, but you feel like you want to joke, instead of just sitting there quietly instead, that changes the cycle. And engaging in that or minimizing being the funny individual will start to change and rewiring your brain that you have to uphold this. Now, will it change your relationships and the people around you? I'm not gonna lie, it more than likely will, but the one thing that is consistent in this world more than anything is change. So those that mind don't matter and those that matter don't mind. If they were genuinely your friend in an authentic way, they will just continue on as they are. But if it's that you're changing your boundaries with yourself and how you show up and people don't like it or try to use tactics to force you to stay in that role, that means it wasn't about knowing you and accepting you for where you're at. It was that they were getting something out of you and that they were using that for their self-benefit. And that's a very harsh reality I'd like to kind of just identify.
Now, they also said that I'm a supportive kind of person, so I'm always there for them, but it's like when I need support, I can't find it, and I'm tackling mentally. Otherwise, they're very good people. I mean, like I said, that's kind of how I felt with, you know, my previous friends. It's like when they had a hard time, I was always there to be like, hey, man, let's get through this. But then when I had a hard time, then it's like, all right, well, I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Yeah. The thing is that, like, I'm trying to remember exactly what it said, but basically it was something like when the thing is like when you start talking about these types of concepts and you start changing things, many times people are like, well, I feel like I'm getting more depressed or I'm feeling more hurt and everything that I was feeling feels worse. So it's like, even though I'm doing everything I need to be doing, everything feels worse, right? It's like, well, but what's the reality of what's going on is that because you've become so accustomed, even maybe have numbed self to being accustomed to just going with the flow of things, that when you're going against the grain, it's going to be uncomfortable But when you go against the grain, you change the trajectory of the grain, right? And eventually, like, this way of things flowing don't work anymore. I need to be what changes the flow of where things go. And it is going to be uncomfortable because change is not comfortable. Change does not have predictability. Change does not have that sense of safety. However, if you want things to be different, if you're in a place where you can change that, it's going to take consistency and it's going to take time. So you could just stop and go back to the way the things are. However, one of the things I truly believe is that once you know too much, you can't go back. And unless you like ignorance and you like to kind of just accept it, which again, enjoy the delulu, like, go for it. Like, I'm not gonna say who, what, when, or why. However, it's like, if you want things to be different, you're just gonna have to wait till the hard wiring changes, and then that will be your new normal, and it won't feel so uncomfortable after time.
Right.
Uncomfortable after time. So, yeah.
Tough stuff.
Tough stuff. And you know what's the kicker? I do this every day.
Yeah, and you told me to go to that field, and I'm just like, no.
Yeah, that's why when people tell me this silly little concept of like, well, I could do your job, I'm like, I doubt that.
Yeah, I know I couldn't.
I think you have to, there's a certain type of individual for this job, just like any job, right? It's like, I couldn't do what you do. Like, my brain just doesn't work like that. But this stuff, I love this stuff. And this appeals to my brain. Like, it gives me all the silly little fun stuff. The serotonin in my head is going wee right now.
See, that's good. I mean, just kind of like when I was dating the doctor, like, she would tell me stories. I'm like, I could not do your job. No thanks. I would be losing my shit all day.
Yeah.
Just having to deal with, like, the Delulu and people.
Yeah, the Delulu is, like, awful. And it's like, and even in then, like, when it comes to delusional thought, some people feel like, how do I say this? It's like, of course it's easier said than done. So when people are like, oh, it's so easy, why doesn't somebody just change this and do this instead? Well, the thing is that humans are hardwired to have which again in CBT they identify as called negative automatic thoughts, or NATs. And it's these like very unhelpful, like very kind of like just reactive thoughts that pop into our brain without effort, because they've been so reinforced that our brain gets the same signals, presses the button, and automatically gets the same thing each time, right?
Yes.
So it's
predictable.
Yes, exactly. It's predictable. And so although when people are like, why doesn't A, B, or whoever just do A, B, and C instead? It's like, because they're in the cycle. And depending if they're ready to challenge the cycle or not, they are just going to stay there. So are you going to overexert your energy for them to change when they're not ready to change? Or can you just reserve that energy and just and ask yourself, do you accept the person still for where they're at, and were willing to expose yourself to this reality? And if not, what are you going to change? It's like, because we do not know what's best for other people. I 100% like have figured that out along the way in my journey. As much of everything that I know about mental health, I cannot tell you what is best for you versus the next person. That is subjective to the individual. And it comes down to how you want life to look like and functionality to look like uniquely to you. And I don't know about you, but it has started saving me a shit ton of energy. I am not exhausted all the time anymore. I do not overextend myself as much as I nearly ever did. And now I actually have a desire to be around people because now I have went and challenged that belief in me that was very trauma based and said, I can just show up and that's enough. And if people are wanting things from me and I'm willing to give it, sure. And if I'm not, then and I have to make a decision of either I'm doing or I'm going to do it anyway or I'm not going to do it. But that comes down to my responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Octal says, and you're gonna get a boost out of this one. Quote, you're better than my therapist.
I'm just a silly goose in a big pond. That's what I am. Though I appreciate it. I think it's really crucial to know that each therapist is just unique. They have different perspectives, different things. I feel very honored that things fell in place for me in the way of understanding trauma the way I understand it. And I am honored to be in a place with Kilted here. And guess whoever joins us along the journey to talk about these things. Outside of the therapy hat and everything, I think the biggest thing that gets undervalued is that when we extend kindness and empathy and understanding to one another, we are changing the cycle for everybody. And when we're exposed to environments like this one, to which I want to uphold both here in this stream with Kilted and guests, whoever joins us, and just as a person or in my personal life, is like you get to show up however you are, and that is enough. Not that it looks a certain way, that showing up as you are is enough. And if you kind of adopt that mentality and extend it to others, then some people may pick it up along the way and then they'll give it to somebody else and they'll give it to somebody else. And in that is the outreach for one another, to which these cycles of pain and hurt kind of come to an end.
Gotcha.
It all starts with one person.
Yeah. It always starts with one person. Kind of like COVID.
Yeah. Yes. Oh goddamn! Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. look how that much impacted everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Octal says, funny story, by the way. I went to a therapist a couple days ago, and he told me, and I quote, quote, there's so many fish in the sea, and quote, you will get over it, young man. Yeah, I don't like that.
I mean,
there are a lot of fish in the sea, but I heard somebody else say something that's like, yeah, there are a lot of fish in the sea, but half of them are guys. And there's a lot of them that are already married, and some of them are gay. So just because there's a lot of them out there doesn't mean you're going to catch all,
Yeah,
so,
like
they're not all edible.
Getting over this is like I've never agreed with the concept of like you'll get over this, because at least in my experience as a human, I don't get over anything. But not in the way that might come across.
I feel like that should be reworded to say you have the ability to potentially get over it someday.
I still don't agree with the concept of like you'll get over it, because I feel like it can be very invalidating and disregarding.
Well, what's your definition of getting over it?
I think that instead of saying you'll get over it, I say you will process this and live with this in a much more manageable way in time. I think because you don't get over it. every heartbreak I've experienced, and I'm not talking about relationships, I'm talking about things that broke my heart: death, loss, um, abandonment, hurt, um, surprises, all these things, right? I don't forget them. I just live differently with them. And that's what I think is a better approach to you'll get over it. It's like you will live differently with this experience in due time. And an individual that works out for you and your dynamic and the cultural piece, things will fall into place as they will in their own time. It's like, but I kind of like, this is the narrative I like to kind of give instead. I'm going to try my best to describe it. I feel like getting over it is not the approach. It's more like when you experience pain and kind of heartbreak or hurt, is that it could be all encompassing to like how it like takes over you, right? So it's like it can hold so much space inside you that it hurts so much, right? And it's very uncomfortable and so forth. But as time goes on, the space around it grows and molds itself to better sit with it and hold space with it. And so it's never going to hurt as much as it initially did when you first experienced it. Like, this is why people don't hurt as deeply as they do when they experience grief and loss, even if it shows differently or it looks like differently on the outside. The experience of how it's gone through is not as much or as intense as the initial point to which it occurs, because the initial shock and surprise has already surpassed. What you're doing is that you're living to change, or you're changing how you live with it. So will there be somebody? Sure, but that's so not the conversation right now. I think it's much more coming down to understanding what you need right now. Like, and what I would interpret is that you need empathy and understanding. And I think that, and I hope to tell you, and I hope, like, I can only imagine Kilted has his thoughts on this as well, is like, it's like you deserve to grieve and hurt and feel however you need to.
Yes.
It, period. Whatever that looks like, I hope you choose methods that keep you safe. Like, I really hope you stay safe. And I know it's not going to be comfortable, and I'm so sorry you're going through this. I really, really am. Like, the idea of me being ever in a position to what you sharing right now just kind of it hurts. Like, I could feel like aches in my chest. Like, so I could only imagine what you're going through. And yeah,
I was
and
going to
it's not
say,
comfortable.
yeah, and they're saying, I told the therapist, well, this girl I was in a relationship with was a perfect match for me, and in the 4 years of being in the relationship, we never had arguments, but he kept repeating himself, so I gave up after the second visit. So it sounds like that therapist is just not the right fit for him, and he should probably, I'm assuming, to go look for, see if there's another one available.
Yeah, I always encourage therapist shopping. I always encourage therapist shopping because, like, because there's such a humanistic piece to therapy. I encourage you to not just, I'm not saying that this is what's going on right now, but I'm saying that, like, to not just stick with a therapist just because you got a therapist. And I understand in a very systemic case, it can get really exhausting to keep trying to search for a therapist and work on that relationship. But I think that's so beneficial because therapeutic relationships are such a unique relationship that I encourage the journey. And I think that you benefit more out of it when you feel that connective rapport and understanding from your therapist. Like, I have a therapist right now. I love my therapist. Like, I've been working with her for a year, just with her right now. I've been in therapy since I was like 10. But I've had that therapist for a year now and changed my life. And I'm so happy I got her.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine choosing a therapist is trying to find, like, similar to finding the right pair of shoes. Just because it's the proper size and your foot goes inside of it doesn't mean it's going to be super comfortable specifically for your shape of foot. Some people need more arch support. Some people need a bigger toe box. Some people need more cushion in the heel. So you got to find the right brand of shoe. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. It's like not one shoe fits all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. That's my thoughts. What about you, Kill? Did anything else?
No, that's pretty much it for now. I mean, it's about that time we start wrapping it up.
Yeah.
Because I need to make sure I get to bed somewhat decently today, because I've been really cooking the old brain molecule. The brain cell is getting overloaded.
Yeah, that makes sense. Stuff like this can really contribute to the overloadedness of it all, in addition to everything else, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
yep.
That's fine with me. We can end right there.
It says, I appreciate you guys opening the stream again. Absolutely. Be sure, like I said, we should be here every week, same time, same place. So if you want to, stop back by again and let us know how things are going, then we encourage that. If you got anything that you're feeling, we recommend writing it down, and then that way you can kind of look back at it later and bring it up again. That way you don't really, have something happen and then, Thursday rolls around and you're like, oh man, what was I going to talk about?
Yeah.
Notebook, right here. Notebook. Pad.
Notebook.
I keep one here on my desk. I even have my electronic one I have.
Oh gosh, you mean the Remarkable?
The Remarkable too. I recommend it.
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor. I wish. Oh man, I love that thing.
I do not blame you if you can get them. Oh, you're in.
Oh, yeah.
You're in there, boy.
They're not cheap, but they are fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, thank you, Asteria, for coming by.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, I got nothing else to say. I'm cooked.
That sounds good to me. Well, thank you, chat, for being here. If you have questions, comments, concerns between now and the next time that we have a stream, feel free to kind of jot them down. Come back in, share with them. Here with us, tell your friends, get your dog, whatever. Dogs have problems too. Yeah, that's pretty much it. We'll wrap up for today. Drink water, not just caffeine products. You know who you are, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds good. Thank you, Chatamaran. We'll see you all later in YouTube. Thanks for watching this far. If you made it, or if you're even watching it,
do better, YouTube.
Yeah, do better. If you want to check out the live streams, 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, Thursdays. That's why it's Therapy Thursday. So hopefully we'll see you here. So
okay, bye.
Bye, chat. Bye, Asteria. Bye.